Much for making a date today on the marketplace. Now, validation of claims for customers of liquidated fund management companies is expected to begin this week. Deputy Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Paul Abibu, disclosed this to Joy Business. Now, Joy Rafe has more of this and other issues covering the 53 firms that have their licenses revoked.
According to the Securities and Exchange Commission, it was forced to take this action to save the entire industry from collapse and protect investors' funds. Paul Abibu is the Deputy Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
It's an attempt to really sanitize the industry and to make sure that those who remain are able to operate, and that there's also a space for us to implement a new regime. I think we've talked about some of the reforms we were hoping to implement earlier on. If you have a lot of distressed firms, it's hard to implement some of these things because you'll find that they're not able to pay investors. Some of them as far back as 2016, 2017, they struggled to make payments. So it became really necessary for the regulator to step in.
Mr. Abibu also explained that out of the 53 firms that had their licenses revoked, 21 were already out of business. He's also been giving us more details on the verification of the about 56,000 investors on the books of these firms.
Is that early next week we'll start a validation process, and we will allow investors.
Monday?
We'll make announcements because, again, there are logistics to be put in place. But we'll make announcements and give people timelines on where they can file their claims. For now, we encourage the public to remain calm. We are putting arrangements in place to ensure that things happen in an orderly manner. And there will be the appropriate notifications as and when we progress. But the framework, as we mentioned, is that we'll make some reliefs available. And that's also part of the reliefs that we are looking at for investors. We'll make some resources available once we've done the validation exercise and we are satisfied that the claimants are who they say they are.
The Registrar General has also been nominated to act as the liquidator of all the 53 firms that have had their licenses revoked. Mr. Abibu has also been giving us details the total value of the assets these firms are holding.
The estimate is about 8 billion. 8 billion, including pension funds. I think the reason I was trying to say that there needs to be some further verification is that for some of the firms, they've not reported for a while. So you would go in there, you'd have a sense of the assets, but if the assets are not performing, for instance, they would have to be provisioned, right? And so that's where you have to find, even though we can say a number, it may not be what you see when you go into the business.
The action by the Securities and Exchange Commission is coming after months of scrutiny of these firms and trying to decide on the next line of action by going ahead to withdraw their licenses. But in all these, what are some of the big firms, or let's say the popular ones, that have been affected by this cleanup? One, can talk about Black Shield Capital, formerly known as Gold Coast Fund Management, First Bank Financial Services, Ideal Capital, and Uni Securities. The rest are Beige Capital, EM Partners, McCartley, and Omega. Well, for more, why don't you log on to myjoyonline.com for details and reasons for the revocation for each company and why they had their licenses revoked.
Meanwhile, the director and head of issuers at the SEC says Gold Coast Securities could not meet some documents requested by the Commission.
In fact, Gold Coast is one of the entities that the SEC, has engaged longest. Gold Coast have been allowed to submit proposals here and there, but in all those things that they did, they were not meeting our requirements. You ask them to go bring this, sometimes they don't turn up. But you are not to talk about Gold Coast as a firm now. They wanted to put up what they call the Cardinal Trust Fund or Cardinal Master Trust Fund or something that they were going to migrate these investors whose monies are locked up in guaranteed returns onto. You can't just move people into another scheme when you don't have the approval of the regulator. So we asked you to come and submit a formal proposal to the SEC. After a while, they created that complaint. They submitted something to us. Said, this thing that you have submitted is not enough. Please go back, redo it, and come back. As we sit here, they have not come back. All that we hear is they are in the news, claim to be migrating people onto a scheme or a product that the SEC has not approved. So we have actually allowed them all the time, but unfortunately, they prefer to do what they wanted to do.
Why did the SEC not inform the public that the scheme that Gold Coast is moving them onto is not approved?
Oh, there was a statement to that effect. The public was told.
Okay.
Yes, okay. It was told. It was told, and I remember when the public was made aware of this, they came back saying, why do we want to, like always, the regulator is always accused of destroying somebody's business. But that is not, there must be a balance between you creating wealth for yourself and also protecting other people's money. There must be a balance. So we cannot be sitting down looking on for you to do what you like when we don't think it is safe for investors.
And in another development, the Securities and Exchange Commission says all 53 companies whose licenses have been revoked breached some sections of the regulations in one way or the other. Director and head of issuers at the SEC tells us more.
All the 53 had violated certain aspects of the rules that they ought to have complied with in doing their businesses. And for that matter, it was no longer reasonable for the Commission to continue to engage after having given them about 2 years to try to rectify these problems. So at that point, or at the point that we were on Friday, it was decided by the Commission that enough is enough. We should start cleaning up of the industry and see which of the managers, are ready to do business to protect our investors and also the general integrity of the market. See, we don't want to create uncertainty in the minds of the public, where you do a few this month, the next time you do, people will not know who next was going to go. So the decision was to identify those who cannot be rescued, and then the decision taken once and for all to actually help the public or the investors have some certainty, of mind as to who they can really deal with in the market. I think that was why we
talk about those who cannot be rescued.
Yes.
Does that mean there were some who could be rescued?
Yes. Actually, the numbers are many. We had about 147 initially. About 6 voluntarily, surrendered their licenses without having any investors' monies. So out of the 141 left, 21 had become dormant due to the same problem of, not being able to meet investors' redemption claims. Then the 32 who are actually in business and also facing these challenges, had to adapt to the number. And so then the 53 becomes the number of licensees that we are getting rid of at this time too.
Well, so last week ended on a rather bad note for some customers of the collapsed fund management companies after the SEC ordered the revocation of the license of some 32 operating fund managers, including Blackstreet, hitherto Gold Coast Fund Management. My colleague Charles Aite has been on the ground interacting with some of their grieved customers over this particular issue. Let's get him now on phone for some updates. Charles, welcome to the marketplace.
Oh.
Now, who have you been talking to and what have they been saying?
So basically, looking at the demographics of most of these customers, we find most of them pensioners. And imagine the kind of impact this would have on them, especially when some of them have had their entire pension funds invested with the fund managers and finance houses. I got in touch with a 79-year-old pensioner who actually has had over 100,000 cedis lost with Gold Coast Fund, which is that's the Black Shield, over the past few months, and he cannot get access to this particular amount. He's tried the best that he could. He even stated to us specific legal action even pursued over the past few months, which never came to fruition. Others also was this 76-year-old man as well, who is taking care of 6 children through the university. And he has over 400,000 cedis locked up with the Gold Coast Fund Management, defunct finance house. So the gravity of impact that most of these customers are faced with currently. And unfortunately, some of them had to just drive off upon getting to the entrance of not just Gold Coast, but other affected fund managers and finance houses as well.
All right, now, so Charles, what about the assurances that validation is going to start this week and for which they could retrieve their locked up funds?
They've been chasing their locked up funds for months now. So for them to hear this news is just one of too many excuses. They just want their money, and they are saying that whether or not the validation process is going to start today or is going to start next week, they just want their funds. But one interesting twist to the whole issue has been the fear of having part of their funds paid. Of course, we're hearing, although not confirmed, that there's this possibility that the government cannot liquidate most of these funds. Part payment or a capping of repayments could ensue. But most of these customers are saying that they're just praying this doesn't happen, especially when their capital remains all they've relied on over all these years. So the validation process, according to them, is one of many excuses. They have no issue whether it happens now or it happens later. They're just concerned about how fast they could get their funds.
All right, thank you very much, Charles IT, for that update. Let's also go to Kumasi now and get reactions after the cleanup exercise. My colleague, Prince Appiah, is standing by via Skype. Prince, welcome to the marketplace.
Thank you very much, Ima.
So how is Kumasi like after this cleanup exercise, and what have customers been saying?
I should say that since Friday, when this announcement broke out, a lot of people, especially customers.
All right, so we seem to be having some challenges there with the Skype, where Prince Appiah is reaching us from Kumasi to get some reactions from disappointed customers.
Unit Securities, one, of course, is the Gold Coast Securities, which is now Black Shield. The customers have not been happy about it at all. One major challenge has been with the global Gold Coast Fund Management, whose customers have been in contact, communication with authorities who have assured them that we're going to migrate them onto a new fund, and validation and all have started for them. So for them, there were some expectations that at least they were going to get their monies anytime soon until this particular announcement. So the news has not been so good for customers of these finance houses and investment companies who have been affected, Yima.
Now, so what about the premises this morning of these affected companies? Were these places besieged by these customers?
I should think that most of these finance houses that I visited, one, of course, the Gold Coast Security, the Black Shield, is one that you would see a lot of people come around. They shy away from the cameras. They will not talk to you. What they say is that the media is even part of those who have contributed to the Gold Coast Fund Management issues coming to this particular status. So they will not speak to the cameras, but it is that particular institution that realized that a number of people had come around. They come and they go. Of course, for some time now, the place have been locked up. And so they coming there was just to have an assurance whether the announcement has really taken effect. But for other places like Ideal Finance, Unit Securities, Cockley, Capital, all those places, you don't see anybody coming around there. The place is calm and quiet. You could find security persons over there. So that's the situation here in Kumasi, Ima.
Thank you very much for that update, Prince Appiah, bringing us some reactions from Kumasi following the revocation of licenses of some fund management companies. Away from that, as the 2019 budget year comes to an end, the Ghana Revenue Authority is expressing confidence that the expected business pickup during December will help fill the revenue gap. The GRA has been given a target of 45 billion Ghana cedis for the year in the 2019 budget, a target many have described as outrageous. According to the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Amisha Dai Owusu-Amoah, the various enforcement drives embarked upon by the authority and a December pickup in business activities should be enough to meet the 2019 revenue target.
Basically, there are various kinds of debts that we will have, in a revenue authority, and there are various methods, as I mentioned, in terms of how you can collect these debts. And also, there are also negotiations that can go on as far as debt collection is concerned. So it's a matter of the enforcement. And so, depending upon how long some of these debts have stayed, we have the right to enforce immediately or the right to still negotiate. But whatever it is, we have to make sure that we are operating within the law. And where the person has exceeded any room that's within the law, the necessary enforcement must take place.
After paying this debt, are we sure that we'll be able to meet the target?
Yes, we are confident that we'll make the target. We are very confident. Not only the debts, as I said, normally the last quarter, December, is a high volume period. And so generally, you always collect more in December. And so that is one point that will make sure that we'll be able to close the gap. And then we'll use this other debt collection also to close the other gap. And then a general campaign to make sure that those who are not paying are also involved will ensure that we close the gap.
Well, in 2019, the annual budget came with a lot of policy statements and projections. Prominent among them were financial sector policy initiatives to help strengthen the entire financial sector. Now, ahead of the budget presentation on Wednesday, November 13, we want to find out if these policy initiatives have been actualized and what is the way forward. Philip Namfuri, in-house researcher, joins me with more. Philip, now, so you're welcome to Marketplace.
Thank you very much.
All right, so what have been promised in the past by way of these financial sector reforms, and where are we now?
Okay, so the budget contains a lot, but we want to focus on the financial sector ones because of what happened with the SEC and then the fund management issues. One of them is the establishment of Ghana as a regional financial services hub. And some will say we've been arguing about this in several budgets. But where are we now? We've gone through a situation where the banking sector has gone through some reforms. We've seen the securities industry also go through some reforms. What about the insurance industry? What about the pensions industry? We need to see total reform in there on the regulatory front, because a crucial part of financial development or financial sector development is financial depth, which measures the size of the different players in the financial industry. We look at financial efficiency, how well these financial services firms are intermediating or providing the services. We look at also financial inclusion, which is also one of the agendas of government that was outlined in the 2019 budget. And it says, Mr. Speaker, government has developed a project based on this strategy implementation, of which will commence in 2019. And they listed some key objectives which they're going to use to achieve this national inclusion agenda. I was discussing on Business Desk with Darryl Kwao earlier on about how we need to come to an agreement where it's either the government plus practitioners who are coming to work together to help us in terms of financial education and literacy. But if you look here, it says improve regulations for savings and loans companies. We've seen the reforms Bank of Ghana has done. Establish a Financial Stability Council. That has been established. A Financial Services Data Center. We don't have that yet. I stand to be corrected, but I haven't seen or heard anything about that. Establish a Domestic Credit Rating Agency. We don't have one yet. Again, I stand to be corrected, but you see that we have what we call the credit reference bureaus, which more or less help.
Like an alternative?
Yes, which more or less help in mitigating the issues of credit risk. But if we had a credit rating agency, as we have in the international communities, then when issues are made or bonds are issued, etc., we ourselves can look at the metrics and see if indeed they meet the required ratings. The last one is support rural and community banks to improve technology usage in digital. We know the Bank of Ghana has taken actions in all spheres. We know the RCBs, the rural and community banks, we're also going through some reforms. So if you look at just the key policy initiatives for the financial sector, there's a lot in there. The last one I want to touch on is the Ghana Commodity Exchange. And last week, we were fortunate to host the CEO of the Ghana Commodity Exchange, Dr. Kadri Alpha. And in the budget, it said they are going to expand the Commodity Exchange to include things such as rice, and other non-agricultural products. He reiterated this point and he said, in the coming months or years, they are going to add rice to the list of commodities, which are 4 already, and then non-agricultural products. So we should see some minerals also going on the Ghana Commodity Exchange in the not so far future. So I say that matching what has happened so far with what is inside, yes, you can find some alignments, but again, we will see the minister give us more updates on what they told us in 2019, and then looking forward to 2020. I think we should see some developments coming from there.
So with hindsight of these things or these policies that you've outlined, what specific initiative do you expect the finance minister to touch on in 2020 budget?
Okay, without putting words in his mouth, without conjecture, without any informed mindset, I would say based on anecdotal evidence, given what has happened in the financial sector, I want something that will bring cohesion to the financial services space, and the ministers will come and give us an update on that. I think that will be well and good, together with other things that we should see in the budget.
All right, thank you very much, Philip Namfuri, with that update on the upcoming budget. Now, there are persistent calls for government to review the country's tax exemption policies. Though exemptions encourage foreigners, foreign direct investment, interest groups and individuals are concerned about the impact on Ghana's revenue generation and fiscal stability. Tax exemptions for import duties in specific areas in 8 years has shot up significantly since 2010. Affected areas were import duties, value-added tax, national health insurance levy, and domestic VAT. Former Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, Vitus Azim, believes a review of the policy is imperative. Prince Appiah has more in this report.
To the tune of 4.6 billion Ghana cedis has been described as unsustainable. The figures exclude exemptions on corporate and individual income tax concessions, on tax rates, petroleum tax reliefs, customs tax for diplomatic missions, and waiver on processing charges at the ports. Former Executive Director for Ghana Integrity Initiative, Vitus Azim, believes a review of the policy is imperative. He spoke at the public forum on tax compliance and responsibility in Ghana.
There have always been complaints about exemptions. Government has promised to review them, but the process is slow. So we need to review our tax exemptions policy to ensure that we don't lose too much revenues in the name of foreign direct investment, especially as we don't see the benefits of it. So there are two things. You have to weigh the benefits against the disadvantages. We need the money. How much benefits are we getting from those tax exemptions? Are we getting more employment? Are we creating more employment? Are we getting more business coming to set up in Ghana? So even though it may be necessary to have tax exemptions, what we are saying when they say review, to reduce them, some have been exempted for very long. So you reduce the tax exemptions and monitor how they are being implemented so that people don't abuse it.
Revenue mobilization poses the biggest challenge in economic management in relation to tax exemptions. Assistant Commissioner of Ghana Revenue Authority in Kumasi, Samuel Sechidodu, says persistent growth in exemption every year is problematic. He tells Love Business, though a tax exemption bill is in Parliament, delayed passage has taken a toll on tax mobilization.
Tax exemption per se is not bad. It's supposed to attract investors into the economy. Some of it have enough money. So it's supposed to attract investors into the economy for them to set up factories.
And that will be it for the marketplace today. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. We have a good afternoon.